Right, back to the Marsh Cave it is. It shouldn't take too long to get there, and I'm not expecting the random encounters before we get to the cave to be all that taxing for us. Still, it's a bit of a pain in the ass that's worth fast-forwarding through at the very least. And part of me is going to be tempted to fast-forward through things as we walk around in the caves, considering how much of them we've already seen so far. But since we haven't actually finished going through the dungeon just yet, it's probably worth slowing things down when we get there, even if we're going to be going through a lot of already explored territory, at least this time. We're going to have to go back to the Marsh Cave again, even after this. Anyway. Dear God. Was that actually a bit of a spoiler? It's hard to really tell, since this game has so little story. Anyway, the footage we've got to deal with is certainly zipping by a lot faster than I thought, even without taking into account me fast-forwarding. Probably because I was judging things based on how I know a lot of other role-player games are generally paced, and partly because I'm reasonably familiar with this game, so there isn't much, if any, real fumbling around, just the occasional check at the map to see if I remember something correctly. And again, this game has little to no plot, and no character interactions. Hell, I don't think padding was really invented for the genre yet, because again, this was the start of a genre. At best, we're just gonna get a whole lot of random encounters, just getting absolutely excruciating just from sheer repetition over and over again for an obscene amount of time. As a side note, I'm not sure if it's faster to go left or right to get to that door. Not that it really matters, since it's not like we have to worry about some kind of timer. It's just a random thought that came to me as we're going down that floor from this angle again. It's not like I have anything fresh to say as we're killing a crawl leg and 3 skeletons again. And I've already mentioned how I'm more free with magic with the MP system in this version of the game than I would have been in the original or Pixel Remaster. Though still, they did a damn good job making the recurring enemies feel stronger in the PSP version without making them outright overpowered, considering what we're capable of at this point. Certainly no risk of things feeling unbalanced this early on. I'm not sure how long that's gonna last in this version of the game, but we'll see. Didn't really mind gaining that high potion, but I don't think that we've really got enough health yet to justify using it when we get wounded. We can sell for using regular potions to heal, assuming I don't just use cure. Okay, nothing in here. Just a path to the next floor. Not too sure why that bat feels the need to block that path there, since there's already a pillar to block it off. It's probably another unimportant thing. Sorry for the delay there, just wanted to double check a map that isn't connected to the game, and it's not like I could record myself looking at that map as I played the game. If I tried to, I'm sure it would look pretty damn ugly on the screen. Anyway, I certainly appreciate getting a phoenix down there. I don't think we're really going to need it after all the leveling up we've done and all the equipment we've gained before our next major fight, but it never hurts to have something just in case you're wrong, especially when you aren't really paying any money to gain it. Even our weakest attacks overwhelm their healing factors. Kind of sad for the poor bastards, really. But then it's probably a very rare person who's gonna feel much sympathy for random encounters, especially when said random encounters are explicitly monsters and not people. Another empty room. When I was checking the map, I should have checked what rooms actually have boxes in them, or at least decided to just not walk into places that had nothing in them. I'm sure that would have saved us at least a little bit of time. Okay, so one already opened box in here. At least there was a second one in here so I didn't end up looking like a complete moron. Though I probably could have saved some time by going after each room as I went by them instead of going all the way back to the left like a typewriter before starting to check the next batch of rooms. Bloodbones is certainly a step up from the regular skeletons, but I suppose that's no surprise. I'm just going to be constantly surprised by the fact that we've got palette swaps of enemy types in the same places we've been introduced to the original, weaker version of them. What is with the enemy progression around here? Definitely not an upgrade for Boromir there. As a side note, definitely like that the PSP's version of item management and equipment stuff just feels easier for me to navigate myself around than the Pixel remasters. It's just funny how many quality of life decisions they made for the PSP version that didn't make it to the Pixel remaster for some reason. Some of them, like the health increases for various enemies, the added dungeons, the way magic is stored. Yeah, I can understand the decisions there. I just preferred it this way instead. And as for the visuals, yeah, that's more of a stylistic thing. But the menus? That feels like an actual quality of life improvement they could have stuck with for the Pixel remaster. Seriously, they had the resources to pull it off. I also really prefer the slightly altered aesthetics of things in the PSP version. You know, I like how green slimes look here as opposed to the Pixel. Those sprites just appeal to me more in this version than what we end up seeing in the other. Though I suppose the magical effects look better in the remaster than this. There are just way too many ways that I have a hard time comparing the Pixel remaster and the PSP version. By the way, I'm a little surprised these things are called Pisco Demons. In the original, they were called a wizard, and visually it looks kind of like a mind flayer from Dungeons & Dragons. I'm not sure why it went with Pisco Demons. I'm not questioning them being here at all, since part of the inspiration for Final Fantasy I was Dungeons & Dragons. I'm just a little baffled by the naming convention here, as well as confused by the fact that in the remaster, there are 3 of these things that attack us when we open the same box in the same dungeon, not just 2. Also a bit baffling for this fight is that apparently in this game, the trigger is getting close to the box, not actually opening it for some reason. I mean, it's not much of a difference, but still kind of noticeable, and I'm curious why they made some of these decisions. Anyway, we've gained the crown. I suppose that will make the king of that ruined castle happy when we get back to him, though I'm sure some players going through this game for the first time might not have even discovered that ruined castle yet, and hear that the king there wanted someone to find his crown. It's quite possible to stumble into this location before that one, and not really know where you're supposed to go next when you're done here. Again, I appreciate the high potion, but we aren't nearly durable enough to warrant that kind of healing just yet. I might need to level up another 5 or 10 levels before high potions actually mean something. Well, gargoyles certainly seem more common in this version, so maybe that's why they didn't bother having a third of those mind flayers in there. And I've got to admit, despite the fact that they're essentially treated like a boss fight, the wizards we just dealt with don't really register as a boss to me for some reason. Yet another empty item box. Right, going to start fast forwarding from here. The only other rooms to deal with in this place are places that are locked until we gain the mystical key, which means we're gonna have to come back to this same dungeon again later on. I can't really blame the game designers. I'm sure the original release didn't have all that much room to work with in the old Nintendo Entertainment System to get all the things that they wanted to do. And it's not quite as obnoxious as how Halo Combat Evolved reuses multiple maps for multiple missions as you get closer to the end. It's still a bit obnoxious, but considering how basic the game overall is, it is not outright jarring. Anyway, since we're planning on coming back here, we're gonna fast forward the next time we're in the Marsh Cave. And of course, we're fast forwarding as we leave, since it's not like we have any escape routes like Pokemon would give us occasionally. But yeah, Marsh Cave just has 3 floors, but the second floor has 2 different versions, because it has 2 different entrances that don't connect together in the first floor. As a first dungeon of the game goes, this was pretty solid, since I don't really count the Chaos Shrine single floor as a dungeon this early on. I just feel like we should be done with this dungeon at this point, considering how much of it we've already gone through. It's not like there are any floors underneath that third. There's just those bare few locked rooms left in the entire dungeon. And while there's a critical thing to grab in there still, we've effectively dealt with 90% of what the dungeon has to offer already. Again, I get why they have us go in there again later on with the Mystic Key. That helps kind of expand things a bit longer, helps keep the game going on, but why not do more with the ruined castle we're heading towards? Seriously, they didn't even bother to give it any random encounters because there's so little in the place. Not because it's a town where you're allowed to rest or an actual castle where there's a lot of friendly people to talk to. Okay, apparently I'm heading back towards the town for a rest and probably to buy some more items and spells before the next major event. I suppose that makes some level of sense. Granted, we still have a lot of NP at the moment, and it's not like we spent all that much down there, but I suppose Wesker is kind of worn down a little, and again, it's not like we're in any actual hurry. And while it's probably a bit of a spoiler, we are going to run into the first of what I would consider actual boss fights in this game soon, and I'd rather be as absolutely prepared for it as I can get. Can you really call it a spoiler when there's so little story and the original release is older than I am? It's not like anyone really cared about any spoilers in Metroid Zero Mission, but by that point, the only story bit from the original game, the fact that Samus is actually a woman, is one of the most known facts in gaming in general. But then I actually did enjoy the things that they added on to the base game there, so it's maybe an unfair thing to compare Zero Mission with the PSP Final Fantasy 1. Because, well, the overall quality of Zero Mission just blasted the original game out of the water to an obscene degree. I would never actually want to touch the original Metroid. It is just a very definitive take with so many improvements, but Final Fantasy 1 just doesn't really have a definitive best version by any large degree of that sort of thing. There are quality of life improvements, some of which have stuck for all but the original. But dear God, it's just always a coin toss if I'm gonna be doing the PSP or Pixel remaster these days. Well, apparently the only spell left worth buying is Blizzara, as far as I can tell.